it's time to have a health conversation, one that I'm sure you would be interested in, because this health condition or disease has been making headlines lately, and I think it's time we talk about it. And joining me in the studio to do the discussion is no stranger to the house, Dr. Kelvin Owusu. He is a consultant at Violet Medical Center, wellness consultant for that matter. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
Yes, it's
I
good to be back.
personally haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing?
I'm okay, I'm okay.
Very well. Now, this morning we are talking about MPOX. It's been making headlines in local media, international media, and everywhere. And there's a scare. I am personally afraid of it, though, because I haven't had chicken pox before. And people are like, oh, when you go, you get it. Don't worry, when you go, you get it. I've grown, I've still not had it, and I pray I don't. And now there's a new one, MPOX. Yeah. And people are wondering, is it a sister or a sibling to chicken pox, or what is it?
Well, I mean, yes, we need to be concerned about MPOX because it is making the waves, and it's one of those things that we haven't paid too much attention to, and it's kind of showing us small pepe.
Oh.
So MPOX is actually more related to smallpox.
Right.
You know what? Smallpox is one of the old diseases that we have eradicated, thankfully. But then its cousin, or should I say, close relative, is still amongst us. In fact, some will say, or in fact, it has been said that because we actually eradicated smallpox, we stopped vaccinating against smallpox. This was way back in the 1970s, thereabouts. And once we stopped vaccinating against smallpox, then the MPOX virus began to rear its head. You know, so if you take a historical perspective, the very first time MPOX was actually detected was in monkeys. And that was why it had the name monkeypox, which has now been, you know, changed to MPOX. You know, so it was first detected in monkeys, and it's a zoonotic disease, which means that it stays in animals and can infect humans. The very first human infection was diagnosed in the 1970s, late 1970s, somewhere in Zaire, then Zaire, you know, and then since then it has been circulating in the Central African area, and then West Africa as well. We've had cases in West Africa in the past and currently as well, you know. Then it also spread to Europe and Americas, and now it's actually, there's no continent that has not had an episode of monkeypox or MPOX. However, for the longest time, like I said, it was only transmitted from animals to humans. Right. So mostly it was people who had close contact with animals, so farmers, you know, who were at risk of MPOX, and then the close relation of those farmers. But what makes this new outbreak different, or since 2022 actually, what makes this outbreak different is that now we are getting far more human-to-human spread than even animal-to-human spread. You know, so this is why it's become an area of concern today. It's actually been declared as a health emergency in Africa. Right. You know, currently. Right. So we are dealing with it's a big deal. About 500, 600 people have actually died as a result of it.
Wow, that's quite alarming. And I mean, what are the usual symptoms that one will see and then get a sense to know that, oh, I need to go and check myself if this rash or this spot on my body is actually MPOX?
So as it is with almost all viral infections, the initial symptoms are always non-specific. You know, so you have the typical headache, fever, stuffy nose, runny nose, you know, maybe a cough here, chills here and there. So the initial symptoms are always like that. So you can't tell what's going on. It could be a common cold, it could be COVID, it could now be MPOX as well, you know. So that's the thing. And this usually occurs 2 weeks after you have been exposed. So the incubation period is between 2 weeks to about 3 weeks. Once you're exposed, then you begin to develop these symptoms. Then afterwards, you have the rash appearing. So the rash, it's all over. It's generalized, you know, and it ranges. You can have flat rashes, which are called macules, you know. So you just have the rash there. It's just flat, like a discoloration. It can be raised. It can be firm. It can have a dimple in the middle. So the rash, it occurs all over the place.
So there are some images on the screen right now.
So you can actually see that I mentioned the dimpling, and then as it progresses, it forms scales, and then it sloughs off or it falls off. So these are, you can see a mixture of the flat rashes with the raised rashes. So the rash actually can be very, very should I say, it's all over. There's no other description for the rash, you know. Now, but before the rash is when you have the prodrome, the fever, the, you know, the malaise or feeling unwell, the headache, the runny nose, all those things happen before the rash occurs. So the rash is pretty much what makes it classic or classical, you know, that you have monkeypox. You know, obviously it can be diagnosed before the rash, but once you have the rash, then you know that what you have is monkeypox. Now, the challenge though is that, I mean, if everybody who had monkeypox developed the rash, it will be easy to know that, okay, this person has a rash, so don't go there. But before the rash occurs, you are still infectious. And the thing about monkeypox is that it's every body fluid can transmit, almost every body fluid can transmit monkeypox. So that's the challenge. In fact, the research is suggesting that since 2022 till date, the most common mode of transmission is actually through sex. Yes. Now, the issue is that even if, and this is important, even if you were to protect yourself, you were to wear condom, whether male or female condom, you are not protected from monkeypox. Because monkeypox can be spread through droplets, even as the person is talking. It can be spread through skin-to-skin contact. You know, so let's say you are having sex with a partner, and the partner has the rash, but because there's no light, or because the rash has not developed fully, you didn't see it, and then there was skin-to-skin contact, you could actually get infected. So wearing condom does not prevent you from catching monkeypox or MPOX. So it makes it quite challenging to prevent it. So you need to be aware of whatever your partner is going through, because once the person has a prodrome, and prodrome refers to, like I said, the stuffy nose, the fever, the headaches, all those symptoms, constitutional symptoms, then you need to be careful, you know. And that's what makes it a bit of a challenge in trying to control the spread, because it's not just about safe sexual habits anymore, because now skin-to-skin contact, kissing, talking, yes, you know, so contact with body fluids predisposes you to developing to being infected with MPOX.
Right. So I just got thinking, before we even go back to abstaining from sex and all of that, is it the time we go back to wearing nose masks and sanitizing our hands, washing our hands as frequent as we can? Well,
I mean, wearing nose mask is especially if you're going to crowded places, is now part of the new normal. You have to wear nose mask if you're going to a crowded place. Maybe you're going to the market, you're going to sit in a trotro where everybody is going to be. And I mean, recently you're in a trotro, or you're in a bus, or you're in the market and somebody's coughing, you know, because in as much as there's MPOX, there are also other viruses that come up, especially when the temperature drops, as has been the case since about June or so. So there are other viruses also up in the air. Even COVID, COVID is also still hovering around. So you need to protect yourselves, you know. So wearing face mask is a prerequisite for everybody who is concerned about, you know, developing or getting in contact with somebody who has an infection or can predispose that person to an infection. So it cannot be overemphasized.
Well, no, let me ask you about treatment. Has there been any treatment found, other vaccinations to even prevent one from getting it before you actually get it and get treated? Do we have anything like that?
So I mentioned earlier that when the smallpox vaccine was being given as part of public health interventions, we never had any issue of any case of MPOX, because there's that cross reaction between the vaccine for smallpox and the vaccine and the MPOX virus as well. Then we stopped the smallpox vaccination because we had eradicated the virus, and then MPOX began to rise. But for a long time, it was an African problem. And you know where I'm going with that, right?
Of course.
Yes. So it has been an African problem for a long time. And as it were, finances and, you know, support. So we haven't had too much luck in terms of developing our own vaccines. But yes, there are vaccines against MPOX. And when I was preparing for this, I read that currently it's being released to Africa so that we can get people vaccinated. But you know, it's not going to be a mass vaccination immediately. They are going to start with close contacts of people who have the virus. They are going to start with health workers, because we are also high at risk, because we are coming in contact with the people at all times. Lab workers, all manner of health workers need to be protected, and then we probably will roll out a mass campaign as well. You know, but yes, there are vaccines available.
Beautiful. Doc, briefly, there's a new strain of MPOX, the Clade 1. So right now, we are running away from the actual MPOX. We've not finished dealing with it, and then there's a new wave in town. What is that? How different is that from the usual MPOX?
So, I mean, you remember that when we were dealing with COVID, we had multiple strains.
Right.
Yes, so it's the same thing. almost all viruses go through some mutation, you know, and new strains come out every now and again. You know, sometimes the strain that comes out has already been dealt with earlier, so we don't hear much about it. So currently we have the clade 1 and the clade 2. And the clade 1 is actually the one that causes most fatalities. Up to 10% of those who are infected with clade 1 will probably die, you know. But thankfully, clade 2 is what we see more of. About 90% of cases are clade 2, you know. So thankfully, and the clade 2 is, in fact, both of them are self-limiting. In other words, there is no treatment to cure the virus. It will do its thing and then it will leave and go away, and then you recover for most people. But like I said, up to 10% of those who have the clade 1 strain will probably end up dying. So then once you have it, you need to go to hospital so that we can start supportive treatment to make sure that we keep you, alive as best as possible. So don't stay home, come to the hospital and let's attend to you as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Doc. It's been an insightful conversation. I was a bit scared, but now I think that I have a fair idea of what to do when I encounter these symptoms or anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Right. We've been speaking to Dr. Kelvin Owusu. He's a wellness consultant at Violet Medical Center, and he's been here educating us about all that we need to know about MPOX.